Good morning. My name is Abinati Bonsi, and today I will be talking about theatre practitioners. I will be focused on two practitioners in particular. So the first practitioner will be Gibson Tutuzelinkende. The second one will be Mongeni Ngema. So Gibson Tutuzelinkende was born in East London in the Eastern Cape on the 23rd of July in 1932, and he died in Soweto, Johannesburg on the 7th of November 2004. The cause of his death was he was infected with HIV and AIDS. Mr. Nkende was a South African playwright, composer, director, as well as producer. He was more focused on jazz music. Gibson Nkende did township theatre, and I do believe that because of where he grew up in a township, is the reason why he actually did township theatre. He wanted to portray the township lifestyle through theatre. That means that a combination of dialogue, song, music, dance, poems, monologues, it used a lot of melodrama, meaning that everything that was happening in his township, he wanted to put in story to show the upcoming generation what was happening back then before they were born. The types of work he produced is that he based their drama on totally indigenous themes of rural life and customs. His work was advantageous in the sense that it could be performed anywhere and everywhere. It could be performed in slums, middle class areas, and townships, in places like shebeens, churches, on open spaces where everybody could watch, and just that kind of environment, the township environment, the township vibe, which is mellow and chilled. He wrote The Girl Who Killed to Save in 1936. This was the first black in English to be published. It promoted the acceptability of assimilation, colonialism by looking at liberty in forms of freedom from superstition and ignorance rather than appropriate resistance. The main thing that Gibson Nkende was trying to communicate through his work was black consciousness, aimed to create direct link between cultural and political liberation. So basically, Gibson Nkende wanted to portray how the politics and government were towards black people, especially in townships, how they were treated, how unbiased things were at that time. So he wanted to communicate that through black consciousness. His work comments on social issues like alcoholism, prostitution, domestic violence, love stories, gangsterism, and crime. And these are the things that are happening in our communities. These are the things that mainly happened to black people back then. Now we are going to move on to Mbongeni Ngema. Mbongeni Ngema was born in Verulam in KwaZulu-Natal on the 10th of May in 1955. He is a South African writer, lyricist, composer, director, and theatre producer. He started his career as a theatre backing guitarist. He worked as a manual laborer and a guitarist before he began acting in local theatre groups in the late 1970s. So basically, Mbongeni Ngema was inspired every time when he went to theatre and played his guitar. He was a backing guitarist, and he got inspired. He started actually becoming interested and being influenced to actually join the actual industry, to be on stage as well. Mbongeni Ngema grew up in the apartheid era, where the world was still unequal, biased, oppressive, and cruel, if I should say. Everything that was happening in the apartheid era, where the white system was dominant and the stealing of land, He experienced it because he was there. He felt the pain. He went through the pain and he was part of the pain. Therefore, I strongly believe that everything that happened back then in South Africa influenced a lot of his work theatrically. Now, everything that happened in that era actually inspired him to write. And earlier on, I mentioned that he started off as a backing guitarist in theater. So that also motivated him and made him long to be part of the actors, the writers, the composers, etc. He was inspired, and his art was actually developed through him being a backing guitarist. So the type of work Mbongeni Ngema produced is the reflection of what was happening in the olden days in South Africa. One of the most famous work that Mbongeni Ngema has ever made was Woza Albert and Sarafina. These are the most popular ones that I personally, not personally, but have more information have watched. Woza Albert is a two-main show that contains that contains 26 vegetars. The play imagines the second coming of Jesus Christ during the apartheid era, as experienced by a variety of black South Africans. Written as a piece of protest theatre. Woza Albert, I sought to confront the inequalities and oppression of apartheid South Africa, of the apartheid that was happening in South Africa. And the second one is Sarafina. I'm sure each and everyone knows about it. Sarafina is a young black South African struggling for freedom during apartheid, while she remained relatively silent in her opposition of the racist government in the country. The movement to make the language of Afrikaans official in her school led to her to protest in the streets with her fellow students, because it was obviously and mainly unfair of every module or every subject in high school to be made to be translated to Afrikaans, whereas black people then did not understand Afrikaans at all. So English was what they were fighting for, rather than Afrikaans that they could never understand. So through his work, he wanted to communicate hope and mediate. He convinced that seeing his works and his history, people are able to realize that in South Africa, there is still hope. There are still many opportunities too, as well as it is possible to create a better life and a career out of nothing. So basically what he was trying to communicate through his work was not just to remind people of what was happening back then. It was not to remind specifically black people of what was happening. Rather, it was to actually inspire them, motivate them that through all the hardships that they went through all the racism that they went through, there was still hope for them in South Africa. In these works, he makes bold statements about the world as he sees it, addressing social and environmental issues that were happening back then. Mbongeni Ngema was strongly influenced by Gibson Kente, as it is apparent in his musical successes with productions such as Sarafina and Magic at 4 a.m. in the 1980s. Therefore, these two practitioners, Gibson Kente and Mbongeni Ngema, have a lot in common, because their craft is based on the apartheid era. Their intention is not to remind black people about the oppression, but to remind them not to ever give up on whatever obstacle that they are facing today, despite of us talking about the apartheid and the oppression and everything. But it also reminds them about their challenges and the obstacles that they are facing in life on this very day, that whatever hardships they go through, they should strive to prosper and to never give up. Thank you.